So my name is Bill Slessman. I'm the CEO and founder of IO Data Centers. We have endeavored since 2007 to change the way data centers are deployed and delivered as a service. Along that path, we developed a technology platform to modularize, containerize the data center itself and manufacture it, and then a software package that sits on top of that so that you can manage the data center in connection with the application stack and with the rest of IT. And going from simple DCIM functionality all the way up to ultimately being a source of informatics to manage workload management as we get to a place where workloads can really move across the ether and across data centers. So with that, this is the birthday of BASELAYER. What we've endeavored to do and decided to do as a company, because of the growth that we've had internal to IO and internal to BASELAYER as well into the product set, is to split the companies into two at this point in time. And so it's a very interesting day for me, and so I'll tell a quick funny story. So I was talking to my wife about this being a birthday for BASELAYER, and she was talking about her parents when she was born this, that, and we don't have kids, and so it's a bit of a foreign concept. But my dad reminded me in a subsequent conversation that he was actually at a hockey game when I was born with my older brother. So come on guys, that's funny, right? No, so it's funny how things have changed, right? So things have changed with regard to how we look at these types of events. And this is a very exciting day for me personally, being a founder of these two businesses. I'm here with my brother, who is taking on the role as the CEO of BASELAYER. I told him, you should either say F you or thank you, what I'm saying, when someone offers you a CEO job. In this case, I think a thank you or a strong F you might be in need, right? So with no further ado, what I want to do is introduce a great panel we have here to talk about what BASELAYER does and how they deliver their technology platform and what we're doing going forward. So first of all, I want to introduce David Martin, who's going to be moderating the panel today. David has known IO. Actually, the IO brand was his invention, the mark. He was currently the CEO of Catalyst Branding in New York City, and in a previous life, for many years, was the CEO of Interbrand, which is one of the preeminent branding companies in the world. So he'll be moderating this panel and leading the discussion. Next, I'd like to introduce Clint Poole. Clint, these are three customers of BASELAYER, each doing some very interesting things with the product set, and I think we'll add to the conversation. Leads a team at the Salt River Project, which is a utility in Arizona, and they'll be talking about some interesting uses for the technology platform, the modular data center, and how they're going to transform the way data centers are in fact delivered. I want to take one pause here because in 2011 in another conference, we articulated a vision for IO and for our product set that we would ultimately be able to deliver 4 and 5 nines worth of reliability without UPSs and generators. On December 8th, Clint and his team and the team at BASELAYER is going to be announcing that achievement, which I think you should all tune into. It's interesting, it's very intriguing, and it goes to the foundation of what IO is and BASELAYER is to simplify the process so that it can function better. So next I want to introduce Grant Richards. Grant leads technology and the data center team and I can't say any more about Grant, what he's done for IO and the partnership we've had with Goldman Sachs as our single largest customer globally, is a customer of both IO and BASELAYER now. So Grant's going to be contributing to the conversation, talking about the things they've done with our platform and how they've worked with the team to develop specific technologies that they've been able to leverage. Next we'll have David Meredith joining the panel. David was with CenturyLink Technology Solutions, leads their what was formerly the Savvis and colocation team globally for them. I think Savvis and CenturyLink subsequently goes without saying. I mean, it's the second or third largest colocation second largest colocation company in the world, and so they can talk about how a service provider has leveraged the platform as well. And then finally, I can introduce the taller, better-looking version of myself. My brother, Bill Slessman, who's the newly appointed CEO and president of BASELAYER Technologies, which is headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona. So with that, I will let David take this away, and we'll get going. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. Happy birthday to us all. It's exciting to be here with a panel of thought leaders in their respective places. And one of the things that we were talking about over lunch as we got ready to talk today is that there's been a lot of discussion around the transition of technology in the data center arena from 1.0 to 2.0. And my big question to the esteemed panel, starting first with Clint, is as you look at life from your perspective as a thought leader, what has this transition into data center 2.0 technology meant for you in terms of your ability to do things that you otherwise haven't been able to do?
Sure. As George mentioned, I work for the Salt River Project, which is the third largest public utility in the United States. And so from a utility perspective, you know, what a modular data center really is, it provides an opportunity to solve some issues or challenges facing the industries of both data centers and utilities. EPRI, which is the the Electric Power Research Institute, they estimate that data centers will consume 20% of the power used in the United States by the year 2030. That's more than 10 times the power consumption of what data centers are estimated today at 2%. So if you look at utilities trying to meet that demand, that future data center demand, what that looks like in the traditional sense is grid expansion, power grid expansion. Power grid expansion is a very expensive process. It also, the timelines are very long, sometimes spanning decades. And more importantly to our customers, it's very impactful and disruptive to the community. So avoid it at all cost. The modular, and I guess stepping back just a second, surprisingly, utilities such as SRP has the ability to meet that future demand today. It has everything to do with moving the compute load of the future to where power is available today. And the modular data center really represents that for utilities, or for us anyway. The ability to take compute load and put it where power is available today. Provide us a better opportunity to leverage the resources as they are today. And by taking the compute load and putting it, and let me describe a little bit, within the utility distribution supply chain, or you have transmission, bulk transmission, and then distribution. Most of us receive power at the distribution level. If you go up the supply chain, not only does power become more available, but it becomes more reliable, and the quality of it increases substantially. So by taking the modular data center and placing it at these key arteries or key junction points on the power grid, you're not only allowing for the growth of data center expansion to occur with low disruption to the community, but you're also providing the data center industry with a higher quality of power and far more reliable power. And to that point, bulk transmission circuits, they have 7 nines or greater uptime. And another thing that the modular data center really allows us to do is look at the module differently than a facility. There are standards in place with how we deliver power to buildings today. One of them says that we can't take 2 energized feeds to the distribution floor of a data center, or to any building for that matter. So you have a transfer switch. And when a power feed goes down, the other power feed, the switch switches, and the other power feed picks up. That's why we have UPSs, or one of the reasons, is to keep the computers going while that switch switches. Well, if you can take 2 live energized feeds into a module, which now is a piece of equipment which can be certified for dual energized feeds, you now have for the first time the opportunity to have 2 diverse power feeds at the bulk transmission layer going directly into the compute stack within a data center. And add the 2 uptimes of those 2 bulk transmission lines, and your statistical uptime gets so high, one might ask themselves, well, do we really need the expense and complexity of power and UPS? Which gets to George's point. On December 8th, we'll be making an announcement, but we are currently proving this concept out in our service territory.
Perfect. Grant, you and I are of the same vintage.
Yes.
And you've been a mover and shaker and thought leader for quite a while in the data center arena. What do you see from an enterprise standpoint that Data Center 2.0 is enabling you to do at Goldman that traditionally you've really struggled to do?
Well, I think that the struggle for companies like ours are really about scale. What we're seeing is scale and innovation at a much higher level, and it's really driven by the large social media and search companies. And it's about data center efficiency. And so Data Center 2.0, part of the promise there is really about being able to keep pace with that innovation and those efficiencies in a scale that we can consume. And that's where modular data center is actually pretty interesting to us, because it allows us to consume things sort of a row of data center space at a time. As well, because of the modular construction and the fact that they're manufactured, it's a continuous innovation process. So what happens is, as innovation happens out in the field and also within I/O, those are baked into the modules. So for example, one of the things is, you know, the original I/O product was really a water-cooled module. And so, you know, we really, as a company, have very aggressive power savings goals. We worked with I/O, and certainly our next data center, which would be our London data center, will be air-powered. So we're looking at tremendous innovation and trying to keep pace of it without the scale.
David, you are a thought leader and an innovator in a space that has gone from something that people did once in a while to something that's now mainstream for 95% of the enterprises out there, who realize that it's much better to go with an expert in co-location than it is to try to build and sustain the infrastructure themselves. What does Data Center 2.0 technology allow you to do from a service provider standpoint that opens up the door to new growth for you?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. And I'm going to play on the key word I heard from Grant, which is innovation. So CenturyLink, we have a 58 data center footprint globally. We're the second largest retail colocation provider, but we've also invested very heavily in recent years in building up our cloud capabilities, and we have a long time history as a managed hosting provider, and we're also the third largest network in North America. So we have 22,000 customers in total over many years, and one of the things that we've seen is that we're driving so much innovation at the virtual layer. All the things we're doing with the cloud, we acquired Tier 3, we acquired AppFog, which is a platform as a service, and we're weaving that all into a hybrid solution set that we can work with all of our customers, from big multinationals to smaller mom and pops, and help them with their journey to the cloud. So we really wanted to drive that innovation down to the physical layer, and that's where we've partnered very closely with BASELAYER and I/O to standardize on their modules. So those modular solutions allow us to meet the needs of our customer segments that are looking for very high density deployments. If you look on average today, the third-party colocation business is growing about 11 to 15%, depending what part of the world you're in. But high density demand is driving up by 35%. So more and more customers are looking for high density solutions where they can drive very efficient PUEs, and they want to be able to deploy their capital in smaller increments. And the modules allow us to do all of those things.
Bill, you and George lived with the difficulties of Data Center 1.0 for quite some time, and you worked really hard to create a solution that would eliminate those problems. How do you think you've done with BASELAYER?
Another great question. Makes you think. I could not. First of all, I could have to say I couldn't be more happy and proud to be on the stage with these 3 and 4 gentlemen up here, as being customers and being highly involved in our technology from the first day that we started, and being born of I/O, being a very large service provider ourselves, now I guess themselves. Being born of I/O was one of the key fundamental things that we looked at, was not just producing a module and trying to dictate what it should be. It was producing a piece of technology that responded to the needs of a varying and diverse customer group. As we know, right, we have a utility that provides power, generates power, large enterprise regulated financial services, and another very, very large service provider, all with varying different needs across what that module or that capacity or that capability of the technology needs to perform at, and what it needs to do for those end customers and eventually the end users. So one of the things that we did and driving out of the I/O experiences was start to develop this technology based on what the use cases, the user requirements, and the actual need of the application was. And if you look through our technology portfolio today, we've built several different modules. Grant mentioned one, which is our Eco module, which uses true free cooling outside air, but also has the capability of switching back and forth in a need satisfy regulated businesses type environment. Our Edge product line that Clint's talking about and using for, and that we're now in the proof point of using at SRP and also using at the edge of the utility transmission is about truly taking the need and the capability to where the user is or where the need is for that application. Right place, right time. Instead of just one place, anytime. So, and then from a service provider standpoint is really driving that efficiency, driving how you deploy data center space, at what pace you deploy that data center space, and then at the cost and the total cost of ownership of that data center space that really drives the service provider's business and drives the business decisions about how to attract customers and what type of customers to attract. And I think the fourth layer that was on top of it was the software. Right? The software allowed us to tie all of this together into a single pane of glass, into a view, and to be transparent not only with our customers' use of the technology, but also the customers' end users get to see what's going on in the technology, how it can incorporate and how it can be part of the IT stack and not set by itself someplace running while everything else is sitting on top of it, depending on it, but doesn't know what's going on. So I think those three pieces. I think the fourth piece also is something that we take very proudly in the organization and driving into BASELAYER as well, is continuing to drive the innovation of these, using information of how our customers use our technology, sustainability metrics, environmental metrics, as well as what is the impact of putting data centers in the communities that we're talking about. One of the things I think all of us have talked about is all of a sudden when you start having massive buildings and massive power consumption inside a single community, what's it actually do to that community from a resiliency at the grid and from the environmental perspective. So across those four features, about as quick as I can say that, is what I would say.
One of the things we were talking about earlier is that when you look at this new technology, it brings a new dimension to the data center in that it begins to help create a mobile data center. Guys, what does bringing mobility to the data center do for you guys in your everyday world?
So I guess I'll start since I brought it up at lunch. So, you know, one of the things about data center is really the consumerization of all of our businesses. Even a business, you know, such as ours, you know, our customers are expecting a different experience, a much richer experience, and an increasing richer experience. And to do that, you really need to drive data to the edge. And so one of the advantages to a lot of the modular solutions is it makes data center a little bit more mobile, and it probably needs to be more mobile. The example that I always like to use is cellular telephones and football games. If you go to a football game or any large event, if you go to big concerts or whatever, you'll see mobile cell phone towers. And the reason they have mobile cell phone towers is everybody there wants dial tone, they want their data, they want to be able to have sort of a two-screen experience. And that's only going to get richer. So you can only imagine what it would be and a rich and powerful experience would be if you rolled up a data center and could provide them with incredibly rich data and then basically tear it down and move it somewhere else. So I think, you know, the mobility is allowing us to think about our business differently, think about how we service our customers differently, thinking about how we can reach out to our customers.
Yeah, and to that, following on that, getting compute to the edge, or right place, right time, as Bill put it. Right place, right time has two meanings for us. One, it's putting the load where the supply is, as we just talked about. Why build supply over here if the grid can accommodate it over here? It's resource management. It's what most utilities strive to do. But then right time, right place for customers, it's pushing compute to the edge. And when you think about utilities, which people most often don't do, but utilities were designed very similar to telecommunications grid and accomplishing some of the same things that the computing grid's trying to do. So if you look at substations and distribution circuits, it's important for those to be close to the customer because power quality has everything to do with circuit length. And therefore, we push substations to the edge. SRP and other utilities have tons of these. SRP has one substation for every square mile in the Phoenix metro area. The Modular Data Center now provides an opportunity for these modular data centers to cohabitate in substations and push compute closer to the edge. I might have already mentioned it, but that's 300 opportunities within the greater Phoenix metro area. And think about that globally. That's a lot of real estate. David, how does it impact your growth and opportunities as a service provider?
Yes, it's very significant. If you look at the CenturyLink footprint, we actually own 55 million square feet of real estate across North America. We have customers, as many as data centers as we have. We still have some markets where there are customers where we don't have a data center. For example, we have a very significant state and local government practice, and frequently they will require that you have the data that's kept within the state boundaries. So the ability to deploy a module, we also, similar to what Clint was talking about with the power grid, with our communications network, the ability to deploy a module where we have network, where we have customers, where we don't have to build a full data center right away and meet our customer needs is really significant. We recently, in the last few months, launched a new data center, Tier 3 certified data center in Toronto. And if you go to Canada, they'll tell you they have very specific regulations about where the data needs to be kept, how it needs to be stored. So we have several customers across Canada where we've got to be mindful of those considerations, similar in EMEA as well.
One thing that I wanted to mention also with the mobile, and it gets to David's point, is by moving it close to the sources, you're actually making the energy more efficient. So as electricity travels the wire, you lose it a little bit, and the longer the wire, the more electricity you lose. By locating the data centers right next to the utility sources, you get tremendous efficiencies. And so it's not only a good place for it to be and highly resilient, but it's actually very, very green. And it's actually will save you money because you don't have to pay for the transmission losses. So it's a huge thing to be able to put it where you have good power.
Bill, has that been a driver for you as you've looked at development over the years?
Yes, one of the primary drivers we looked at through all of our technology platform, whether it's the software or the hardware, and the software enabling some of this stuff, was the efficiency of the data center. What is it doing? Why is it doing? Where is it doing it? And if you look at it from across all these points, whether it's putting the module closer to the utility and gaining the sustainability, gaining the efficiency from being closer to where the generation is at, right, and not losing that factor across the transmission, or whether it's augmenting existing data centers with modules now running at very, very low PUEs and taking advantage of the core utility and the core chilled water that is sitting there idle, that's already been invested in. Right? Or whether it's an operational metrics and using the OS from a clarity and a transparency perspective, and to be able to operate the data center in a more efficient manner, right? To be able to show that operationally you can improve the uptime of the data center through the use of software and software-defined metrics and how you configure and define these modules and put them together. So efficiency goes, it's a wonderful question because efficiency in our mind goes across a huge range of different things that we look at, whether it's energy efficiency or people efficiency, right? Operational efficiency or energy efficiency. And then also being able to match, being able to look at it from an enterprise perspective and put ourselves in the customer's shoe and say, I need to have a data center, whether it's a very large enterprise data center like CenturyLink uses or Goldman Sachs uses, and being able to match that slice of the data center, not the whole data center, but the individual slice of the data center to what that application need is. And that's where, again, the module comes into play to start gaining every percentage of efficiencies that's needed. Being able to define those data center modules to be able to run at a way that is completely in tune with what the application's doing and what that enterprise infrastructure is doing inside of it. And then be able to do that in multiple different places in the data center. And that's where we continue to drive percentage points off of the energy efficiency and into much lower PUEs. And then also drive it into what I would call more of the cutting edge area where we're using outside air and we're starting to remove the components and the complexity of the data center that drives the efficiency the wrong direction, right? Whether it's UPSs and generators on the full cutting edge, how do we get rid of them? Or whether it's using outside air, but still being able to maintain an environment that's suitable for regulated businesses, right? So you can use outside air, but drive to mechanical or adiabatic or evaporative when needed because of external conditions. And again, leveraging the software and the software-defined components to do all those pieces. But I can't, it drives through the entire research and development of what we do.
One of the things that's always fascinated me about this industry is that it's been an industry that forces over-provisioning. Jokingly, most people who know me say I have this story that basically on the golf course I was telling a gentleman who has a 32-inch waist that if he thinks that someday he's going to be up to a 48-inch waist, he needs to buy those pants today and walk around hiking them up just in case he's going to be able to use them someday down the road. The interesting thing is that as we talk today, David had a big announcement this morning. We're realizing that the true causes of downtime in the data center arena are largely people and management and operations. And we're looking, as Bill says, to be able to use this technology to be as efficiently as possible. David, talk a little bit about what you guys are doing that speaks to that.
Yeah, thank you. And playing on your point, Bill, about how you operate is almost as important, if not more important, than what's built. And we were talking about this at lunch, and George Slessman texted me a picture of a $2 million car that was completely totaled because it had an inexperienced driver driving it through LA recently. So I'm going to put that on my slides for Thursday. So that's what happens. You can have a $2 million state-of-the-art car, and you put the wrong driver behind the wheel, and it gets totaled and it's worthless. So we build these wonderful energy-efficient data centers, and they're Tier 3 certified for both design and facilities, and everything's great, and then you're not running it properly, and then that's the causes, that's where you have downtime. So we announced today with the Uptime Institute that we were the first co-location data center provider that we are committing for our entire footprint, all of our data centers globally, we are going to have it certified for management and operations, M&O certification by the Uptime Institute, which means we're opening the kimono to let Uptime Institute come in and poke and prod and make sure that everything we're doing from an operational perspective is world-class. And I think we really invite the rest of the providers in this space to follow the lead on that. I think a year from now, every RFP you see will be a question, are you M&O certified for your data centers? And I think it's a right question to ask because that's where most of the downtime comes. So tying it back, actually the way I first started talking to I/O before we became a customer and bought all the modules that we've been buying was I was pulled in by the software. And my team said, Dave, you have got to see this software. It's absolutely fantastic. So we had a meeting to talk about the software, and we ended up talking about the entire solution and how it all fits in together, and one thing led to another. But I think really that software, the ability to have everything on one pane of glass and manage and be much more granular in terms of understanding what's happening in your operations, it's all part of the overall solution of how you can be world-class at operating these data centers.
You can't go anywhere without reading about the need to scale and the need to scale up efficiently. But one of the things that we're realizing is that the reality of business today is it's not just about scaling up. It's about being able to scale up and down as needs dictate. Grant, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. One is on the central theme of capacity management. If you look at the way IT manages capacity, we need as many tools as we can to manage it. But if you look at our universe, we have 2 data centers. We have one active, one passive. So immediately we have 50% more capacity than we need. Then you think of the redundant components. You think of the redundant UPSs, the generators, everything like that. It begins to compress your world. For us to gain efficiency there, what we're going to have to do is make some compromises. And so that sort of gets into the application layer and sort of the partnership with applications to create and shrink our capacity. The other part about shrinking and growing is really the story of cloud. And at least our vision as of this month, since it's a rapidly changing landscape, is that what we want is really a seamless experience in our cloud. So what we want to be able to do is there's certain, for either regulatory or financial reasons, things that we're going to run ourselves, and we're going to have those facilities controlled by us, not necessarily owned by us. And certainly bursting into the cloud, it's probably nothing terribly earth-shattering there. But we're looking for a more seamless experience. So the combination of the two, working with the applications to accept a little bit more risk, think of capacity management different, and also be able to burst in the cloud, we think that we have tremendous latent capacity.
One of the things that we talked about earlier is the fact that we're looking at next level needs. And as Clint said, one of the key challenges that we're all going to face is ongoing need to be more sustainable. We talked a lot about some of the things his organization is doing in power sustainability. We're looking also at water sustainability, and then we're looking at sustainability by how we behave up and down the stack. Can you guys want to talk a little bit about how you see those needs evolving into the future?
I'll take first stab. I think from our perspective in developing products to help do this and looking out in the future, it's about, and George mentioned it as one of the original visions of our software and that software platform and the hardware platform was to tie together the idea of IT operations, of data center operations, of the IT infrastructure and the application and the business need. And one place where you can then start making decisions and driving forces and automation to be able to drive further down the idea of sustainability, further down the idea of shrinking up and down, and understand when you should go different places. Really truly get into an automated perspective of the data center, much like in other industries, whether it's cars or whether it's airplanes or various other very large pieces of industrial equipment that we've already gotten to. I think one of the important aspects that you look in that too is it's the coming age of the industrial internet. We've already talked about the commercial internet, right? And we have the coming age of the industrial internet and the Internet of Things that we all are excited about and hearing about. But we also have to be able to scale in the right way to accommodate where that data is going. Right? And then having that software, and like I said, one of the original visions of looking out, I think that's one of the most difficult things that as an industry we're going to have to go through, is not only have the rich content of the commercial enterprise and the commercial internet, but also having the high speed, low content, but a tremendous amount of it in terms of size, coming in and out of these applications in our data centers. So being able to take a software and software define how the hardware responds to those two different environments is probably going to be one of our biggest challenges going forwards in the future. Obviously, we hope to try to solve that with our technology and what we're doing, and working with our customers like the gentleman on stage here to do so. But I think that's our biggest challenge going forward.
Yeah, and for those of you familiar with the Phoenix area, you know that water isn't an issue there particularly, and that people water their lawns and drink water, and data centers exist. And a lot of that has to do with the company that I worked for, the Salt River Project back in 1903, who really sees itself as a resource management company. It provided the dams and the water supply necessary to bring water to the desert. But then that quickly turned into a need for power, and power then quickly followed. And now we're entering into that third generation of our company, which is compute and data transmission. And that's my area, and that's what we're looking at. And the big focus and the way we're looking at this is efficiencies and proper resource management. So taking modules is an opportunity that we didn't have before. Compute load just used to fall on our service territory, and we had to go and serve it, regardless if we had capacity in that area or not, which was a terrible use of resources. Now, with the modular data center that BASELAYER is creating, you can now influence load to go where power is available. And that's how we're addressing resource management at our entity.
Last question for you guys before we go into questions from the audience. Lesson learned. Each one of you are parts of large, long-standing organizations that have been around for quite some time, and you have each in your own right been able to manage through the process of taking the step to bring a very innovative new technology into the fold. What lessons can you share with us in terms of how that can be done successfully and navigate an organization that is long-standing successfully to get that done?
So I'll go first. So CenturyLink has been around for 75 years. We've had 3 CEOs in that time, and we're a $20 billion company. So as you can imagine, that's a big company, and new ideas, they take a little bit of work to get through. So the way that we were able to move into the modular realm, one is using facts and data, and if you look at the total cost of ownership and you look at the efficiencies you can drive, it's a very compelling story. 2 is customer feedback. Always start with the customers and work your way back into product, not going in the ivory tower, making a product and figure out who wants to buy it. So we had customers coming to us saying, hey, we love your service, we love the quality of the data center staff, the operations, the bench strength, everything that you bring, the cloud plus managed plus colo. but we really want to get into the modular space. How can you help us with that? So we were pushed there by our customers. So I'll just say from an advice perspective, if you're an enterprise and you're thinking about, hey, I want to try the modules out, really the whole combination that makes so much sense is don't go and buy it and put it in your own facility, because to Grant's point, that's not an efficient way to do it. You can go to a CenturyLink and go ahead and purchase colocation in an I/O module, and then if you don't like it, you can always migrate that to the cloud or migrate it to one of our managed solutions. So it's a very risk-free, easy, quick way to get into the modular if you want to try it out, is to pair it with a colocation purchase.
So, yeah, driving new technology, but we're comparing dates. Goldman was founded in 1869, so it's 145 years. So I win.
Yeah, you got that one.
One of the interesting and really dynamic aspects of working at Goldman Sachs is we have an incredibly tight partnership with the business. And we believe that actually in the next 10 years, the distinction between technology and business will probably disappear. So when we bring things in, we talk about it, and we refer to them as being doubly green. So the first thing is, does the solution make the firm money? And second, is it part of our ecological responsibility? We have a very aggressive carbon neutral goal for the mid-2020s. And so everything that we can do to save power is incredibly important to the company, as well as, of course, turning a profit and returning things to shareholders. So that's one of the ways that you can do it. The second way is actually by demonstration. When we first wanted to build our grid environment, we had a conversation with the CIO. He said, Goldman Sachs doesn't co-locate. We said, I think you're making a mistake. We designed this as a co-located footprint. Long story short, when we got to about the 5,000th machine that we put in their data center in about an 11-month period, he finally cried uncle, called us into his office and said, I think Goldman Sachs is ready to co-locate. So I think part of it is showing them in little ways why this makes sense. And he understood that this was an area that was growing dynamically, and for us to build this amount of data centers, it just didn't make sense. So again, part of it is partnership, and then part of it is demonstrate these things in little and big ways that prove your point.
Yeah, and so any company can be innovative, and I think all three of us are over 100, our companies represent over 100 years of existence, each independently. And if 100-year-old companies can be innovative, any company can be innovative. What it comes down to, as a person driving innovation within a company, you need to know your company very well. You need to know what its core values are. And for me, being new to the utility industry, I quickly kind of studied what was important to our upper management and SRP, and it really became resource management and getting the best use out of our grid as we can for our customers. This project dovetailed into that so nicely, and public will learn more about the project we're working on next week, but it really is a convergence of the computing grid and the power grid is what we're trying to do.
Bill, today's birthday. Company's born on its own. What should we be looking out for over the roadmap as what's next?
That's a great question, and without going too far in the future, we plan our roadmaps out, I would say, quite a ways. Looking at and taking feedback in from all of our customers, whether it's I/O, whether it's CenturyLink, whether it's Goldman Sachs, SRP, the ones that are probably in this room as well, and our other partners that host modules as well, like a Ford Trust up in Denver, who's been a wonderful partner as well, and also our ecosystem partners that concentrate on installation and maintenance and operations. We take all of that data and bring it into, along with our applied intelligence groups that's taken operating data, several hundred years now of machine hours operating data, because we can treat each module as an individual unit and each module as an individual hour. So you take all that data and all those pieces, and we're constantly bringing that back into our environment and saying, what should the next generation of module, what should the next generation of software look like, and how is that going to, and most importantly, to repeat what David said here, most importantly, is it important to our customers? Right. So, and is it achieving something or a need that our customer has that wants to be achieved and needs to be achieved at some point in time? So, In the near future, we're going to see an announcement of the edge modules that we've been talking about up here. That's going to be coming out publicly very, very soon. We have a deployment of the eco modules going into the UK, which will be one of the early deployments of those, and continue to drive what I would call the overall performance of the data center, the system, as well as the individual modules themselves. And in that performance metrics, where we're looking at is not just efficiency, but can it scale up and down inside the module? Is it configurable enough with the software to be able to achieve a service provider's need, a large enterprise's need, a utility need, or a web scale property need, and primarily looking at what I would call the densities and trying to turn or bend the laws of physics as much as possible, which we're always trying to do, but to be able to scale from a low density to a high density inside the same module, configured based on software, or even auto-configured based on what the load is doing itself inside the module. And that's what we're really driving to. So some exciting announcements coming out in 15, both on the software front, a new version of the software that really achieves significantly more functionality specific to the DCIM market and also to the industrial internet market, and then some various different upgrades to the modules.
You folks have been very patient with us. Hopefully it's been edifying. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.